censoring speech. This is concerning, by the way. Hopefully they can, these antitrust laws or cases can be brought up. People, I recommend, if you have the money, the wherewithal, to definitely file suit, file a lawsuit if you've been a victim, if you feel like you've been targeted from YouTube, Facebook, or these web hosting platforms. By the way, you should file a lawsuit. By the way, you know, and just my opinion, because things could get worse. Like I said, I talked about in the video that I did last night, like North Korea, where they lock people up. Also, you're welcome. Don't hesitate to chime in the chat section if you have any statements I say in relation to this video that you would like to address, or any questions. By the way, but I was going over once again that I have not been a registered voter since 2004, but I still uphold those who are going to participate in this election. I commend you, those who already have. Make your voice heard. I'm in a different category, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm a hypocrite. So I understand that, but my tax dollars that I spend when I work still contributes to the GDP of this economy, the gross demand, in other ways. It's just I do not want to be attached to the negative consequences that comes with being a registered voter and certain contracts as well. So keep in mind, as a free American, by the way, you have the freedom to choose, just keep that in mind. I shared this with the relative, by the way, and I did a video about this, some of these things related, on my second backup channel. So in case you're wondering, you can go over there, check that video out. Let me know, by the way. The lady text says, do you know about the Bloomberg trials? No, I've heard of the Bloomberg terminals. Okay. No, I don't know about that. By the way, you could elaborate. I'm welcome. I'm open to hearing information. I heard he said he was going to spend $100 billion or something like that towards Biden and Kamala. By the way, it's like he has a lot of money. He's a billionaire, just like George Soros, by the way. So I don't know if that has something to do. Of course, they were caught cheating in the past. They did do some cheating, even though Trump still won by a large amount in 2016. By the way, I heard even in the state of Georgia, in real time, they were trying to flip the machines in favor of Hillary Clinton. By the way, and Homeland Security or something, they had to come in and stop it. By the way, but in live time, I heard reports that people voting in the state of Wisconsin that voted for Trump, they saw from using these electronic voting machines, their votes were flipping for Hillary, by the way. So it's not a coincidence. I've heard that Soros owns voting machines and stuff like that, but I think they're going to try to do their level best to make this election fair, by the way, fair and honest election. By the way, because you guys obviously know, you've heard about the mailing thing, the ballots. I don't know all of the details and stuff with that. But however, there have been reports. There was a lady, a guest that Alex Jones had interviewed some years ago by the name of Beth Harris. She's supposedly like bipartisan. She's neutral. She's actually a liberal, but she's like an overseer that oversees fraud, voting fraud, and corruption. And she reports show that even when Obama really, technically from her reports, it's neither here nor there because it's past, but they flipped that Romney was going to win that night. Remember, he was in a significant lead earlier on, and I heard in Obama's second term, Obama won the first election in a landslide. That was real. His numbers were astronomical. But his second term for re-election against Mitt Romney, Romney actually won. But she said they used the things, and there was fraud. There was from the indication, I guess, that comes from the group or agency she works for that's able to track what they were doing. And I remember that night, I even had a friend, he was a liberal, by the way. He was a Hillary Clinton supporter. And he called me the following day. I was on the phone with him, and he said it was very suspect how Romney was in the lead that night significantly. I remember seeing posts on Facebook from Obama supporters who were concerned, very worried that he was going to lose based on the momentum that Romney was at. Then all of a sudden, by the end of that night, Obama had won re-election, but Obama, that's another example. Him and Romney was like a neocon, basically. When someone made mention earlier, Marie McFarland, Republicans and Democrats being the same, Romney is a former, he's like that, he's establishment. But I would say it's in his best interest, because he is a Republican, to get and double down and support Trump, because the party that's his opposition, that's his competition, and the ruling class elite want to make the Republican Conservative Party obsolete. They want to destroy them. By the way, so that's why I think it's in their best interest. All the Republicans need to double down and support Trump, and even the people out there that know the truth, that are really woke. Uh, Conservatives are the better option, in my opinion. They're not perfect, but the Democrats I'm going over while I'm doing this walkaway video, they're way more egregious with the activities they've committed. I saw too many stories on the local news here, and even in other cities, by the way. So the lady sex seems like they are all corrupt. The D's, yes, I heard that many cases. So yes, but for the first time ever, I think Trump, he's not bought, he's not paid off by many previous politicians. You have to look at it like this. A friend of mine pointed out that, keep in mind, Trump made his money before he got in the office off of golf courses, real estate, apartment buildings, casinos, hotel chains, and things. But you look at Democratic politicians before they went in office. Remember when Obama went in the office and they mentioned what him and Michelle's net, they said it was around 5 million, by the way. And I was like, what's the importance of this? Like, part of the initiation, you have to write a book. A lot of times you're going to be a lawyer or whatever before you go into office. It's going to be, ways, because remember, him and Hillary each had a book. They were running a vicious campaign against each other in the primary. She eventually conceded. By the way, when they met privately at the Bilderberg meeting, I heard that because the Rockefellers primarily controlled America, they decided they wanted to see Obama, but the Ross preferred Hillary Clinton. This is what I heard allegedly was discussed at the Bilderberg meeting. Remember when Obama and Hillary disappeared from the press back in 2008? You guys were paying attention back then and remember that. I remember, by the way. If you go back in time, that was a big news story, by the way. So just don't take my word for what I say. Go and do your research, by the way. Just reporting the information. But very interesting things that kind of got sidetracked from. I'm going to go back to my notes here. By the way, so I did mention earlier that you have big social media platforms, which are primarily if they had political views, they support the Democratic Party. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as well as other web hosting platforms. They're going to great lengths to remove videos like the one with the doctors who've been coming out as whistleblowers. Videos YouTube has removed. The documentary that Millie Weaver, the Shadowgate documentary, was removed, taken down by Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And they're removing these videos very quickly, labeling them falsely as harmful without due process, by the way, without evidence. And then they'll say, sometimes the excuses will be, they'll say, due to COVID-19, their review staff cannot review a video. When you contest or challenge them on the legality of why they are quickly removing these videos, by the way. So you have to think, why would they be removing these videos so abruptly, quickly like that, especially with these doctors coming out as whistleblowers? If they were telling the truth, if they were really honest, by the way, because they have this index check, this fact check thing, Snoops allegedly, you have to question them on that. That's why I say go back and do deeper research and investigate. Why is the left doing that? Because they want you to believe only what their narrative is, by the way. Why are they going to these great lengths to do that? You have to question these things. This is another reason why I'm fleeing. I'm running from the left, the Democratic. I will never come back, by the way. Never, ever come back if they're going to these great lengths to do that. Lady says Shadowgate was awesome. Yes, I agree. Even though I got to go back and finish, it was quite long, but very excellent information, very well put together by Millie Weaver and I think what's her name, Tori that worked on that, and the other guy, Bergie, can't forgive me if I'm not pronouncing their names correctly, but they did an awesome job with that documentary. If you haven't saw it, you can go to band.video. By the way, let me see if I can post a link in the chat section. Well, actually, band.video might not have it. They still might have it, but I'm gonna post a link to BitChute, by the way, to check out. There's other web hosting platforms you guys want to get on as a backup too, that have been an answer to some of the censorship going on. These are other web hosting platforms that you can get on. I'm posting in the chat section so for you guys to check out. Here's an alternate URL link to band.video, by the way. That alternate URL link, they said they're gonna come out with other ones, newer ones, if you have trouble getting into band.video. And there's a way to download the app to your phone. By the way, there's a way to manually do it. I don't remember all the details, but they may still have the video up. You can maybe look up videos, tutorials, but they report on, in my opinion, real news, what CNN, MSNBC won't talk about. As independent media, by the way, this is to bypass these technocrats that control these big tech giants that want to control the narrative, by the way, who are oftentimes removing these videos, like with the doctors that were coming out as whistleblowers, telling the truth about COVID, and other videos that are given obvious evidence. This needs to be concerned, and this is another reason why I don't support the Democratic Party, because they're not speaking against that. They're not doing enough, by the way. So why would they go along with the censorship, which this happens in communist countries such as China and North Korea, and they even disappear people over their political views? Why would I support a party that does that? It's coming from the left, not the right, by the way. This is a fact. You can double check. So to go over some more information, by the way, you see, for example, okay, more African Americans. Okay, I talked about, I think I covered the protests earlier. I'm going to go over in regards to Antifa. Many of the same people that live in the suburbs where they hate for blacks to come, they come to Detroit. They do this in other cities. They cause trouble. So if we were to go to the suburbs and protest in their neighborhoods and tear stuff up, like some say all hell would break loose, by the way. Doesn't make sense. That's like me saying, because you have other ethnic groups of white people, Caucasian people, that's like me saying, going and protest for Italian, saying Italian lives matter, I'm holding up a sign. I'm saying Polish lives matter, Greek lives matter. So it's very suspect that you have people at these protests that are claiming Black lives matter, but if you put the shoe on the other foot and say you have other ethnic groups of Caucasian people, let's say I'm holding up a sign saying Irish lives matter, but I don't have any Irish in me, by the way. So I find it very suspect that one lady was telling me her daughter was at a Black Lives protest in the state of Indiana. I won't say which city, but when her daughter had came back, she had saw all white people were there, and she didn't understand. On that, I'll go into detail. Someone asked me about the Nick Cannon situation not too long ago from that interview that he did with Professor Griff, and I recommend these two books, by the way. This is part 2. This book called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. I also recommend, this is part 1. This deals with the transatlantic slave trade, by the way. If you can still find this, look on Amazon or eBay. I heard a friend of mine told me they banned this or tried to censor this, but this is called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam. Historical Research Department put out these books many years ago. I have a friend who is friends with a Mason, a traveling man, someone who belongs to this organization here. And I heard the same story from someone else, by the way. Trying to get this camera. I don't know why the lighting to adjust. Uh, he put out, he said, you guys need to get this book. This part one, which I'm not finished reading, goes through the families, the specific Caucasian families that participated during the slavery times that own other Black people. This is why it's not a coincidence why this same lineages, these bloodlines, by the way, control. If you look at the entertainment industry, you look at sports. Remember, Jay-Z put on his 444 album, many of these bloodlines, why they own most of the properties in the country. By the way, this is not a coincidence. What Nick Cannon spoke about, I could have done a separate video to delve into that. Nick Cannon was telling the truth, by the way. You know, he did a separate video with Kanye West, by the way. You guys should check out. By the way, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to sound offensive. I did give a disclaimer, by the way, but if you want to boil down to who are the real enemies, it's certain particular bloodlines and lineages. If you get into studying and learning the last names, learn the etymology of people's surnames, where they come from as much as possible, even though there's significant portions of people mixed into the population. But this traveling man that my friend knew who belonged to this organization, by the way, right here, told him to get this book. And I heard the same thing years ago from another traveling man that privately. This book more so deals with the transatlantic slave trade, the families, the Jewish families, Caucasian, Hasidic Jews that participated in the transatlantic slave trade, by the way. This part two deals with those who participated during the Jim Crow era. And they had deep ties in with the Democratic Party, who also voted. You can look this up, do your research. They voted for the Jim Crow laws. It was after slavery. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican who freed the slaves through the Emancipation Proclamation. Frederick Douglass was a Republican. There was a reason not until the late 50s going into the 60s that many African Americans switched over to the Democratic Party. It's not that they trusted Kennedy because he was still white, but it was told to me, they felt like the African American community felt like Kennedy was looking out for Black people more so during that particular time period, by the way. This is why there was a big switch, but then again, remember, the South was Democrat, if you look at the map geographically, by the way. But it's not like this big switch. Some moved to different places geographically, but the Democratic Party had deep ties into not only starting the Ku Klux Klan, they voted for the Jim Crow laws. After slavery, the Democratic Party also tried to re-enslave a lot of African Americans, by the way. This is a fact. Look up with the Republicans. I did a previous video with some people back me section where the Republicans helped pass legislation for the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendment, by the way, was due to the Republicans. The Democrats even went as far as in the state of Mississippi, but in general, they created the Black Codes. If you've heard about the Black Codes, it was similar to like the Jim Crow laws, but the state of Mississippi created their own Black Codes. That was done by the Democratic Party, by the way, in case you guys are wondering. Look up former telling you that the mainstream media, they don't, they want to make Trump out to paint him like he's the only one or the one that's racist. But it's the racism has the deep ties, deeply embedded with the Democratic Party. And you can read the articles, document them before they try to remove this information, by the way, ahead of time. They will try to censor, they've already done it. So the information that is still up, that is, you want to make sure you also document this information, by the way. The Democratic Party, this is a former governor, Jesse Ventura of Minnesota. He was also a Navy SEAL, and he participated in years ago the World Wrestling Federation before they had to change the name because of the lawsuit dealing with the World Wildlife Organization. But he was a wrestler, very famous. He had a show on True TV, reality show, and exposed many things. And he came out with this called the 63 documents the government doesn't want you to read, to let you guys know they classify and they declassify information. So there's things that happen if they try to accuse this information I'm going over as far as being conspiracy theory. Understand everything that I predominantly talk about is factually based. I'm giving you the resources to look up, to do your own homework, to do your own investigation. So you're not taking my word for what I'm saying because I'm so confident in what I'm presenting to you all. But you see, I'm showing a collection of information so you guys can formulate your own opinion, by the way. But these are things that are related. So it looks like, so we lost the connection or we're losing the connection again. Let me go to my troubleshooting. By the way, okay. Okay, we're back. Saying that we lost the connection for a while. So in case you guys, we lost the connection temporarily, just know it looks like they're messed. This is the first time ever, by the way, since I've gone live that I've seen the connection messed with this many times, by the way. So I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you haven't. You can subscribe to me at Dorsey's Resource. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. By the way, I'm also on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _2019. And that's more back side. My Twitter is my more conservative side, by the way. I'm discussing in this video why I walked away from the Democratic Party. I'm never coming back. I'm never returning. This is a video. This is notification to all my relatives or those who might follow me, you know, that send me all those inboxes or whatever. You'll never convince me about Biden and Kamala. There's no way, especially when Joe Biden supported, lobbied. The video was still on YouTube, by the way, where he lobbied and fought for the 1980 field, which Clinton signed into office, by the way. Things that they tried to cover up, but information has come out that Trump created the First Step Act, which helped Angela Stanton, who's running for office in Georgia, get out, by the way, become released. And she went on Roland Martin and other programs. And to me, she ethered Roland and went on the Breakfast Club and destroyed him. Phenomenal. That's another candidate I support other than just Kim Klacik and John James in Michigan. Commend them for the valiant the effort that they're putting forth. And I feel they all deserve a chance based on information I'm just sharing. By the way, you know, trying to look for other information I've got. I had a lot of information, guys. I don't mean to be long-winded, but I'm just going over a lot. I'm going to touch on Antifa, which I was going over. So a lot of the mainstream media, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, hasn't condemned a lot of the violent protests that took place after George Floyd's name. Where did the money go to? That I heard that there's even some white people that think that this money was going to members of the Black community. I said, don't tell me that's true. I heard that from someone. That could have been a form of reparations, but I heard George Floyd's family didn't even receive any of that money at first. Maybe by now they could have, or whatever. I heard Jacob Blake's family, but you know, what did they accomplish when more people, innocent protesters, people got killed after that off of one person, by the way? And it was police officers that agreed that Derek Chauvin was wrong, clearly, for what he did to George Floyd, by the way, but still faced major scrutiny, by the way. So we need to know, in my opinion, how much of that money went, for example, did that money go to help Black communities if they claim Black Lives Matter? Since a lot of people in the Black community suffer from issues related to financial problems, wouldn't it help to a degree for that money, or to make sure that that money that they raise from these different instances go to help, you know, to Black people in particular? This could have been a form of reparations with all the money that's raised. What someone had pointed out had shown how a lot of this money was being refunneled into the Democratic Party, into their politicians, by the way, that are increasing their paychecks. When many of these protests turn violent, it becomes a riot. It is no longer a protest, and therefore it's no longer protected under the Constitution. Rioting is violence, so therefore it's a crime. Let's understand there's a distinct difference. I think they still, in my humble opinion, it was peaceful at first, what I noticed after George Floyd happened, because it was worldwide. But then remember, it took a turn for the worse. It just went extremely violent. It went from 0 to 1,000, quick, just like that. And I think they still would have had a major effect, even with the peaceful demonstrations. The peaceful protests had a major effect before it turned extremely violent, by the way. But I think that's very concerning, just in my humble opinion, that I support Black Lives Matter. I think it should matter. However, there's a difference between the organization's ideology, which I don't agree with, that wants to get rid of the nuclear family structure. By the way, there's a difference. So I support Black Lives Matter. Yes, they should matter just as well as Blue Lives Matter. All lives should matter. But however, the ideology of Black Lives Matter, I don't agree with. That wants to get rid of the nuclear family structure. That when I went into the history earlier about feminism, funded by the Rockefeller family, that created a wedge, which a lot of Black women have abandoned, Black men that have co-signed feminism and received benefits and stuff, and are so selfish, they don't care. They use Black men at their expense. And a lot of these protests have used a lot of Black men to push their agenda. Even other groups have come in, foreigners, LGBTQ, as a bait and switch, will come in and champion their causes, by the way, but will claim Black Lives Matter, but will push their causes there. And we Black men, heterosexual, straight Black men, contributed a lot to the struggle years ago. As a friend of mine pointed out, we should be receiving a benefit when it comes to divvying up the spoils. We should be receiving some type of benefit. There should be some form of Black reparations for Black men in particular, we could argue, because many of my uncles, my ancestors, were just as much involved in the struggle. So why are we not benefiting to this day? But we have the court system is biased against us. Child support. There's a demographic of Black women who support feminism, who support the destruction of the household. Black boys have to be raised by their mothers. Females are first energy. They're the first person that child sees. That's supposed to be the teacher. So the problem goes back to, the problem ends where the problem begins. Just pointing out, these are my grievances, why I left the left. I'm never coming back, by the way. And these are the reasons why. Now, let me also go over that, right? And therefore, be sure to mention, I'm not defending hate, understand this, or police brutality in any form is wrong. That's clearly wrong. A form of people being genuinely mistreated. Understand that there's a difference, by the way. Okay, let's see. Okay, we lost the connection again briefly. So understand, I'm not defending brutality, but I'm not defending hate, but I'm just pointing this out, that when a protest turns violent, it becomes a riot. It's no longer a peaceful protest, by the way. And that's very concerning that the left co-sign this. They want Trump to disavow so-called white supremacy, but they won't disavow these violent, not peaceful, but violent so-called protests, riots, looting, destruction, and people being targeted, hurt. That's clearly wrong, by the way. There's a distinct difference that needs to be made. So the message I'm trying to convey is the globalists, the ruling class elite, are using the police as a scapegoat by hyping this up in the media, by the way. The siege anarchy is disguised as anti-racism and anti-police brutality. So whenever you see these protests immediately turn violent, this is a cover for their ulterior motive. This siege will emerge as a sustained attack on a segment of the American people who are covertly being bullied into supporting their communist overthrow agenda. You see, let me go over this again. The message I'm trying to convey is the globalists, aka ruling class elite, the criminal syndicate, the Illuminati, by the way, they're funding these anarchist groups. There was a historian many years ago named Michael Terry, and watched part of an interview. He was being interviewed and he said these globalists are funding anarchist groups. So they're using the police as a scapegoat by hyping this up through the media, which they control, by the way. The siege form of anarchy is disguised as anti-racism and anti-police brutality movements that you see so-called activists. Whenever you see these protests immediately turn violent, this is a cover for their motive, by the way. This siege will emerge as a sustained attack on a segment of the American people who are covertly being bullied into supporting their communist overthrow agenda, by the way. More African Americans die from abortion, medical malpractice, intentional or unintentional, black on black violence, car accidents, etc., versus police hands of police, by the way. Each one of these types of instances are unfortunate instances alone kill more black people versus the police, way more, especially medical malpractice, or, whether intentional or unintentional. Unfortunately, the only black lives that matter to BLM are those that they pick and choose, by the way. This is not inclusive and does not practice tolerance and inclusivity. Now, in many people's eyes, remember, the left is supposed to be inclusive and tolerant. But unfortunately, the only black lives that matter to BLM are those that they decide to pick and choose. Remember that little girl that was killed down in Atlanta, Georgia, when the mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, was like, y'all killed a baby in the press conference when she said that. And her father even spoke out and said that. And I talked to a member of the Black conscious community that's seen the pyramids in Egypt, that's more progressive, more pro-black than myself, has said that it's very just as important and concerning with black violence and crime, with gang violence. And if they can catch this militia group, this Wolverine militia, then this lets me know law enforcement, they have the capability of cleaning the streets of Detroit and getting rid of a lot of the crime and gang activity. If they've expended a lot of resources to go through that to catch this group. This is what a friend of mine mentioned, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, by the way. Just saying. So went over that point. Now understand where I'm once again. Black lives do matter. However, a distinction must be drawn from the moniker itself versus the organization's ideological belief. It is important to draw a distinction between the statement Black Lives Matter and the organization that created BLM. Another problem is many in the Democratic Party vote unilaterally and blindly following the party instead of paying attention to the specific issues. A lot of this identity politics. That's where they will vote for the candidate because they're the same skin color, or they look cool or whatever, like with Obama, but they don't look at his policies, by the way. What is he pushing? Is he a man of action? Is he getting stuff done? So that's another reason why I left the left, why I'm not a Democrat. I would never go back. So when you vote blindly, you get taken advantage of because many liberal politicians are aware of this and are not being held accountable, by the way. This is why they've been able to get away with taking advantage of the black vote for years. Remember, Vice did an episode where they took a segment of black voters who were Trump supporters, and they took another segment that were Hillary supporters and asked them, by the way, and both sides agreed. They all raised their hands. You can see that it should still be on YouTube, that the black community is taking advantage of the black vote. So this is what happens when you practice identity politics and you vote blindly. You're not holding politicians accountable, especially career politicians that have been in office a very long time. That's why I said John James deserves a chance, Kim Klacik, Angela Stanton, as well as others. And that guy who's running in California, Joe Collins, by the way, support him. Very good brother. Watch him do a sit-down interview with Alex Jones. Very good interview. Check it out if you get a chance, by the way. It should still be on band.video. You might just have to scroll back. But check out the interview. He's running against Maxine Waters. He's also a former veteran, by the way. And he talked about personally what Maxine Waters did in her district. She was supposed to be responsible for taking care of veterans when he got out of the military, and he was hurt. And he sent her flowers and everything, and she just ignored him. Now he's running for office. He even had a relative who's a pastor, a bishop, and says he gets a lot of support from people because they know he's the grandson of this relative of his who I guess he has a similar background to myself. He grew up in the church and said they know who he is out there. So support Joe Collins if you can. I believe that's his name. Don't quote me on it. But very good interview that Alex Jones, he was at the studio and I believe in Austin, sat down with Alex. And, so check it out if you get a chance. That's another good candidate I would support, definitely. Hattori Hanzo says, greetings to you, Hattori. Thank you for joining, by the way. So I went over what happens when you vote blindly, you get taken advantage of because many liberal politicians are not held accountable. The left also, another problem they do, the left encourages the worst behavior in people while the right encourages the best behavior from African Americans. Whereas the left, the Democratic Party promotes deviant and bad behavior. In many cases like Netflix, which is liberal control. Netflix also lost a lot of subscribers due to that cuties film. Remember, the left support stuff like this. Remember, someone in the chat section of this video earlier on pointed out how they support this correlates to that sex trafficking stuff with Hollywood, the entertainment industry. So let me repeat this again. Whereas the left promotes deviant and bad behavior from African Americans, the right encourages best behavior, better, type behavior. When you look at their policies, the left wants to get rid of the nuclear family structure. Why did BLM remove what they removed from their website, their ideological belief? Why is that? You have to question. Leftist attorney generals like to say no one is above the law. However, they've been proven to ignore rampant corruption and misconduct when it comes from one of their own, by the way. When it comes from one of their own, Democrats don't want a solution to the problem. They just want to profit off of the issues. They want to drum up the issues, pushing the racism narrative to gain more power off these divisive issues. So what I'm saying is the Republican Party, which is not perfect, however, it has a better pathway. It's a better option all the way around, by the way. Does it right all of the wrongs? No, it doesn't. I'm not saying that. However, Democrats don't collectively address of all their supporters, like me being an African-American man like myself. An Angry Man did a video the same night before I went live and it's talking about the same thing. Check out his video if you can, if it's still up or if it uploads. I don't know if he's gonna have it on his Patreon account, by the way, but check out that video if you get a chance. I'm gonna check it out again. I was watching some of it before I went live with this video. He made some very excellent points. I think more powerful points than myself, so you would get a different perspective. His channel is called Boss Talk Radio, by the way. So I'll give him a big shout out. Let me go see if I can pull up his channel if he's still live, by the way. His channel's called Boss Talk Radio. Oh, yep, it is uploaded. Okay. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. But this was a real good discussion he had, by the way, to show you guys I do my research and I can back up, verify what he's saying. He can back up a lot of what I went over. I'm gonna post the link in the chat section. Welcome to subscribe. Tell him if any of you all out there already know who he is. Tell him Dorsey sent you. Dorsey's Resource. Give him a big shout out. He didn't ask me to do this, but I'm just showing the validity, which you normally are not going to hear. But he's somebody that has a similar experience, that grew up in the hood, the ghettos, from the streets, the mean streets of Detroit. I'm also from Cleveland, but I grew up in the mean streets of Detroit. From the hood, you get another hood perspective, but an intellectual way. And he goes through similar things. He explained about his mother, similar to what I mentioned when I speak about my relative and other people who send me all that stuff to try to win me over to the Democratic Party, to Kamala and Biden, which I never would. No way. But just check out Angry Man. I posted the link in the chat section. So hopefully after this video uploads, go check out that video, because I may even download it. Has some very good information. He's already at like 3.1 thousand views. So big shout out to Angry Man. That's the name he goes by, Valdez over there. Been following the channel for a while. So let me see if there's some of the other notes. So I mentioned the Democrats, they keep pushing the racism narrative to gain more power off these divisive issues. So I went over the Republican Party has a better pathway all the way around. Does it right all of the wrongs? No. However, Democrats don't collectively address the needs of all of their supporters. For example, they will use Black men's deaths at the hands of police as a prop, or even Black women, like in the case of Breonna, or many instances, Sandra Bland, but they will turn around and champion another cause such as women's rights, LGBTQ, immigration. This, which is, I pointed out, Elizabeth Warren did. She talked about when there was the reparations bill. And by the way, Trump put a proposal together already to, I think it may be executive orders. This a sister sent this to me in the state of Illinois. By the way, I didn't know anything, and I heard about it. I didn't report on it, but a few people did. A proposal what he planned to do for the African American community, and he was going to make Juneteenth a holiday. By the way, which I saw in a proposal, which is really powerful. Right there, and some other things to try to help right some of the wrongs that was done to the African American community. But you had Elizabeth Warren, for example, when the reparations talk was going on last year. Remember, it was around the time 17th, the ADOS movement, hashtag ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. That's what that's an acronym for. And she turned around and said that she would champion reparations for the LGBTQIA movement. This is what Elizabeth Warren did, by the way. So they will use black men, heterosexual black men did a lot to fight for these rights in the movement, by the way. Straight heterosexual men. I just want to say years ago, even though they'd say this, Martin Luther King's friend Bayard Rustin was gay, but and another thing I want to let you guys know, I'm not trying to bash gay people or nothing like that. I have friends who were like that in the past, but I'm just pointing out that these particular issues, these candidates will come to the black community and they will promise milk and honey, bubblegum and flowers, peaches and cream, but they'll champion causes of other groups, by the way. It's like a bait and switch. And I saw this, witnessed this firsthand from Elizabeth Warren, by the way, in the ADOS talks when the hearings were happening last year. So I just want to say historically, a friend of mine pointed out when it comes to divvying up the spoils, black men, those heterosexual black men, we were on the front lines. Those of us who are alive today, our uncles, our grandparents, we deserve the benefit. They fought in the civil wars. They worked the grunt jobs. A lot of black men were inventors of things. So when we have a system that targets us women within our own community, we want to see the Democratic Party, and Ice Cube was on Dr. Boyce Watkins' show, by the way. Even though they say both parties don't do anything, but I see the Republicans as the lesser of two evils. The Democratic Party, this is why I'm doing this video to explain, to go delve further into what is not oftentimes spoken about. Other American men, black men, melanated men have expressed these same grievances that I'm explaining, by the way. So I see King also in the chat says, bro, thank you for taking the time out to teach and enlighten. Blessings. Appreciate you. You know, I'm just saying, you know, where we deserve, because I told one of my subscribers, I still do believe in reparations. I had a subscriber, I appreciate you guys. I have subscribers from all different walks of life, by the way, background. So I try to, you know, not, I try to keep it real, by the way. So I was having a conversation with the subscriber, this was a while ago, and he's of course a Trump supporter, and I let him know behind the scenes I support Trump overall, but I let him know he didn't agree with the reparations thing, and that's fine. I didn't get triggered or nothing. I mean, everyone's welcome to their own belief, but I do feel at the end of the day, you know, I can't abandon my, you know what I'm saying? Just like they have a thing locally where the Polish people have like Puszki Day, where they practice group economics and foreigners, the Arab community. Someone even told me they worked with some foreigners and said that they support their own. They didn't even come to a barbecue that they were invited to. This black family was having a food event, and they told them that they only support their own. So to show that they are, you know, loyal to practicing group economics, which I've supported black businesses before, and I will try to do that. And I said down the road, if my investments come through, if my ship sails through, I would like to help out my community of people. You should, it's like your own family, your personal family. That's why you will have a certain love for your children, your kids, your immediate loved ones, by the way. But since the Democrat wants to break apart the family structure, I'm still single. I would like to have a family one day. That's another reason why I don't support the Democratic Party, and I would never go back until they change their stance on that. I'm never coming back. By the way, you know, I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. You know, it's no reason. I explained to a friend of mine that I should be single at this age. Even foreigners, people of other cultures, make sure their kids, they arrange their marriages, by the way, too. We don't have that, like the way our culture's set up over here. So, you know, we have to figure out a way, those of us who are still single, and it's a large proportion of African American men that are eligible, like over 50%, that are still single with no children, by the way. And because we have, unfortunately, a lot of our women, I'm just being frankly honest, they support thuggos, the Pookies and Ray Rays, a lot of the criminal archetypes, by the way, they put them on a pedestal, by the way. Like a lot of the drug dealers, and remember, innocent people get killed dealing with stuff like that, by the way. I'm just saying, I'm not knocking what a person is trying to do to survive. I do get that. But understand you have to deal with consequences that also come with that too, when you based off the different decisions you make in life, by the way. Because I was presented with those same temptations as Principal Elizabeth Dozier said when I watched from that show, Chicagoland, by the way. I saw a short video where she interviewed, I guess, one of her former students. She went to see him in prison, by the way, and she said she wanted to make sure that he may have been part of a program that she said you will be faced with those same temptations. So I was faced with those temptations many years ago when I was a lot younger, but I had to wise up and take heed that this lifestyle will take me down the wrong path, you know. So we as African Americans too, we have to be responsible and be honest. So I have to get our own race, our own ethnic group as a people to stop making excuses too for these people who commit these violent activities or involved in gang activities, and or put them on a pedestal. So Black people have to find shows like Empire, Power. I'm not trying to hate on 50 Cent. He's a great businessman. I'm glad to see that. But at the same time, we have enough drug dealers, sports athletes, entertainers. We need more Black doctors. We need more Black scientists, more Black entrepreneurs, inventors. Black people are not passing down generational wealth. And because of what the Democratic Party does with the welfare system, the entitlement programs in the form of control and pushing victimhood, is compatible. You see that you have. So that's why, you know, as doing this video, I'm explaining the ties to the left, the Democratic Party, why, you know, I see more opportunity from the right, by the way. You know, just sharing my opinion. So I see some more people in the chat. Sandra Week says, amen. Thank you, Sandra Ashe. Sandra Week says, that's right. Everything has consequences. Appreciate you for it. By the way, you guys are welcome. If you agree with what I'm saying, jump in the chat. Let me know. By the way, Sandra Week says, in the last days, they will call good evil and evil good. Yes, we're definitely in the last days. I was listening to, for example, not to get off topic, but to correlate with what you're saying, economist guy named Bo Pony was being interviewed, by the way, that he has a website where he teaches about precious metals, the commodities market, buying physical gold and silver, and gives predictions like with cryptocurrencies for those who are able to pay for the information. But he gives good free information, and he came up with this PDF file that's a chart of some of the things, excuse me, that are to come down the road. I think it was a good breakdown based on some other information that I have come across, by the way. And that's what it appears as though, and the left is doing just that. The Democratic Party, in my opinion, where they are putting the corrupt people, the bad people on a pedestal, you know. But I don't want to make it seem like, you know what I'm saying, I'm on a moral high horse or whatever, or I'm perfect or anything. We all may have our flaws, but overall, this is why I lean more to the right versus the left. You know, to me, they're selling snake oil. You know, I'm going deeper into, I've got a lot of notes compiled already. I mentioned earlier, they use Black men's deaths at the hands of the police as a prop to champion another cause such as women's rights, LGBTQ, immigration, which don't focus on solving Black people's urban problems such as poverty, high crime, lack of fathers in the household, abortion, high jobless rates, etc. So, and I will also add that these systemic discriminatory practices also come from the banking insurance institutions too. that I think Black Lives Matter should pay more attention to protesting, like Chase Bank and others, State Farm Insurance, Progressive, Allstate, Liberty Mutual Insurance, the systemic discriminatory practices. That's why if you look at the bill that they had to pass in Michigan where the governor got involved, that's one of the things I commend Governor Whitmore with. And I like one of the things I can commend, with candidates I might not agree with overall, I commend partisanship with that bill that she worked on. And Rashida, when she went, I saw that video where she went and told those CEOs off. I think that's good because a lot of these egregious practices and systemic racism and discriminatory practices come from the banking and insurance institutions, which you can trace back to slavery, to the transatlantic slave trade, by the way, which J.P. Morgan, I was told, has ties to the East Indian Company, a company going back years ago, when they were using zip codes and people's credit scores based on the decision whether they would loan you money or give you a lower insurance rate premium, by the way. I need to see more of that specifically being protested on from the Democratic Party if they want to win me back, by the way. But I don't see enough of that. So I went over that already. I thought how Joe Biden and the Democrats, many of them supported the 1994 crime bill that sent a lot of Black men and women to prison. Leftists also love free speech until you disagree with them. I kind of touched on this earlier. When we talk about the manipulation of Black people, they preach tolerance and acceptance. However, their actions in many cases are consistently biased towards those who don't share the same political ideology, by the way. They even go as far as to remove your whole videos from Facebook now, Twitter. They call it or label it as hate speech. Be sure to mention there's a segment of the Caucasian Jewish population and Jewish elite in the entertainment industry who use Black people as their pawn, by the way. Remember, I went over this book earlier, these books. This one deals with the transatlantic slave trade. This one deals with the Jim Crow era. And this book also talks about their connection with this organization. This book, if you can still find it, just to back up the notes that I'm reading from, by the way. These people are also so smart that they know they don't have to cater because they know that they've got a lot of Black people, African Americans in their pocket are controlled. As one elder told me, he's seen the pyramids in Egypt. He's a historian. He said many of us Black men have been made obsolete because the Democratic Party has ignored us and they promoted feminism and things and put the women on top and a pedestal, by the way. I'm just saying. So that's why I see these things fixed. You cannot convince me to come back to the left. No, I'm gone. That's why I walked away a long time ago. Even though I'm not a registered voter, there's no way you can win me back with certain issues. I need to see these people who inbox me this stuff. I need to see them change their ideology. And the information I'm going over proves this. I want to see Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, the Obamas, the Clintons, etc. I want to see their actions just like they request Trump's, by the way, because these people became millionaires while working in government. Remember, Trump made his money in comparison. Trump made his money off of hotels, resorts, real estate, casinos, golf courses, etc. before he even took office. These Democrats came into office with significantly lower incomes, yet when they left office, they became multimillionaires. That's called corruption, by the way. This is called corruption. I personally see this mostly coming from the Democratic Party. When I compare the lesser of two evils or the better option, two wrongs don't make a right. However, corruption has been a more rampant problem in the Democratic liberal controlled communities in comparison. Another thing, the left, there is no middle ground. For example, if you go offer an opinion outside of their party narrative, they will vilify you, blacklist you, etc. This is coming from the left. Democrats don't allow party members register voters to support causes not backed by their socialist communist agenda nowadays. Another example, if you don't support BLM, LGBTQIA, immigration, then without evidence, they will accuse you of being racist, homophobic, bigot, xenophobe, etc. If you're Black, they will even go as far as to shame you even more, because establishment members in the Black community, they say certain establishment members in the Black community, people of secret societies, Boule, I posted that link from Steve Coakley earlier, check that out, by the way, allow these issues to take precedence over the major issues affecting the Black community. As I mentioned previously, the problem is coming from also the Black Boule, establishment people who work these political campaigns and make money off the other issues that truly don't address the needs of Black people, by the way. They're neglecting. Kim Klacik kind of addressed this, by the way, when Elijah Cummings was allotted over $20 million by Obama's administration that was specifically supposed to go towards the blighted homes in Baltimore and the homeless population. And there was one other thing, and where did the money go? But you still see that she wants to help fix the blighted homes down there, because this has been even a big problem even in Detroit, where they had activist groups help gather people to board up homes as kids were going to school, because there was a problem with girls and stuff being pulled in abandoned homes, being raped and stuff like that. Just sad. And I'm not saying that that takes away from what Elijah Cummings, commended what he did maybe during the civil rights movement and things, but years later they took money from George Soros and got lazy and stopped helping the people, you know. And these are things that's got to stop, by the way. And then you had like former mayor down there got indicted. You think that's by coincidence? And this happens in a lot of liberal cities, and I've seen the corruption firsthand here in Detroit, by the way. So this is not a coincidence. Sandra Reese says it should be called telling the truth speech. Carlos Rivers says, very smart, Cookie, thumbs up. Appreciate you. Sandra Weeks says, backroom deals. Yes, you are correct. I agree. You know, these obvious groups. Another thing with Black folks, is still no centralized leadership for the overall Black agenda. One of the number one issues in the Black community is fatherless homes, abortion, and Black on Black killings. Black Lives Matter has recently raised over $300 million, well over that amount. And you have to question, has any of this money gone to help Black people or the Black community? Where has it gone? They need to account for that. If they want to see Trump's taxes, we need to account for where's that money from BLM going. All the money that George Soros and others pours into these groups, they could use that money to assist poor Black families paying their utilities, property taxes, rent, college tuition, student loans, car notes, etc. All the money, 100% of the donations to BLM should go directly to Black communities in need. Now, they stay silent when children across the country gunned down by thugs, but then they'll riot when a thug gets shot and killed in some instances after opening fire on a police officer. This world is so corrupt and ass backwards, don't you think? When people speak, for example, a lot of them are also knocking the church, but I defend the churches in some instances. When people speak of the church not elevating the Black community, you do have to look at, do have food banks. Some churches have sheltered people who are homeless. They host major funerals. They also played a critical part during the civil rights movement of the 50s, 60s, etc. So just something to keep in mind, because some activists have gone so off ham that they knocked the church. I know it was used as a tool during slavery too, by the way, but at the same time, you shouldn't totally knock the churches, by the way, the ones that do try to help. But many of these Democratic, liberal, progressive party preaches inclusivity, tolerance, yet whenever you disagree, they are the first to exclude you. They won't show tolerance to anyone who has a strong differing opinion, by the way. I see this firsthand predominantly in the majority of their followers' ideology. The one thing Democrats fear is free-thinking Black women. I saw the sign that the girl was holding up to disarm the police. Yet let's disarm the police while armed thugs are roaming the streets, killing black babies in Atlanta, Chicago. We should have that. They said they should have that same energy for George Floyd. With many of these people being violently killed, murdered off these streets, if they have enough manpower to catch these militiamen, then Gretchen Whitmer and the government, the attorney general, they have the manpower to clean up the street stuff. So just something to think about. You know, is a controlled opposition when it comes to the left. It's a circle within a circle that's financing these world wars and chaos. But just looking at some of the solutions to things the Democratic Party has been involved with that can do to change things to help out, by the way. Sanjay says, yep, very backwards. Says some churches are sold out to BLM. Yes, you are correct. And some synagogues as well, by the way. Because remember, as I went over earlier, this book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, this was put out by the Nation of Islam. And no, I'm not a member. On a side note, they didn't ask me. All of these books I've been shown, by the way, and this information, I want to let you guys know. I did give a disclaimer, but I want to put on the record, no one put me up to this. I'm not getting paid by George Soros. I'm not getting paid by Alex Jones or no one. I'm just as a concerned American, by the way. Looks like says we lost the connection. It says your connection is unstable. Please wait while we try reconnecting. Okay. But I want to let you guys know I'm not getting paid by anyone. This information I'm sharing, I'm reading from notes that I've already compiled as a concerned American, as you call citizen, that wants to inform people of the real correct information that they're not getting from the mainstream media. But this book, especially in this book right here, this one might talk about the 501c3, but it definitely talked about some of this organization, by the way, how they used these secret societies. Also, my friend that's a historian put me up on this. The first Black nationalist organization used to spy on other Black people and inform on them, act as informants during slavery times, was Black Hebrew Israelites. I had a situation at my job right after Trump had won, or maybe prior. No, I think it was after he had won the election. I had a conversation with a coworker back in 2016. And this coworker, was coming from, like, he was a pro-Black perspective. And when I told him about some information I was concerned about, and I told him about my YouTube channel, he had snitched on me at the time. I found out when I had to go meet with, because at that time I had recorded a lot of videos in my security uniform. And they asked me at the time when I had to meet with the directors to take the videos down, but she also mentioned, and the other manager that was there, that someone snitched on you. They wouldn't say his name, but then I figured out who it was. And I discovered that this guy had a connection with this other coworker who was Caucasian, white behind the scenes. So there's people that can be within your own circle, that could be family members or coworkers, that could be agents, by the way. And then this white coworker told me he was good friends with this person. By the way, on a side note, when I was at an alarm, I had to respond to, because that's what part of my job was, to respond to business alarms during that time period. And this guy basically told on me behind my back. So you have operatives out here, agents. A lot of them are part of different secret societies and belong to this organization right here, by the way. But these books talk about, the role that they play, these bloodlines played during slavery. And this book deals with that organization. And they created the NAACP. They created the Urban League, a lot of these organizations to control the Black community too, by the way. You ever heard of the field Negro and the house Negro during slavery times? This is how they have operatives, agents within the Black community to spy, and they'll even use people who are your own family members, by the way. And they look at your Facebook post. The sister I was speaking with in relation to that event that I attended. And she shared with me privately that her and her mom had come across a lady who said that she worked for Facebook. Basically, she was told to keep this under wraps, but she spied and reported on people, informed on them from their posts. So I've heard about the churches being FBI faith-based initiative. So many of the churches, yes, they have sold out. And if you check out Bishop Larry Gator, he has an excellent platform I just recently discovered not too long ago. He's a conservative preacher who I happened to see was on Alex Jones's show a while ago on Band.video. And I've been watching his podcast. I've subscribed to his YouTube channel and puts out excellent information and touched on this, how many of the churches are sold out through 501c3, by the way. So I was just so amazed at this information prize, but I'm going over how I've experienced this firsthand. I've witnessed many of these things. Sandra Reese says, read Bill HR 6666. Okay, I think I may have heard about that. Mary Saunders says, I'm reading this book called The Cleansing of America by W. Cleon Skousen, if I'm pronouncing that. Well, Sandra Weeks says, I believe it's 60606. Oh, okay, thanks, Sandra Weeks. I think I've heard about that. That is concerning. And it's interesting, Mary, if you don't mind elaborating on what that book is about. By the way, if you don't mind sharing, called The Cleansing of America, by the way. I would be interested in checking that out. Mark Dice also is working on a book too, by the way. A friend of mine mentioned to me he plans on getting where he's exposing the connection the entertainment industry's influence in politics with Hollywood, even though sometimes many cases they'll claim that they're apolitical or don't get political, but he's going to explain how they influence and use a lot of their power and things to infiltrate and influence average Americans. So I think that's a good book. A friend of mine told me he's going to let me check it out, where he's thank you, Sandra Weeks, where he's exposing Hollywood, by the way. So I think it's going to be a good book. If I have it in my budget, I have one of Mark Dice's books too in my library. I think it's called Big Brother, where it talks about the tech companies, how I saw this coming, how they would use this technology, they weaponized it, by the way, to commit some of the egregious activities and things that we see going on now. By the way, like with Facebook, how they removed the video with the doctors and how they're data mining people and by the way. Because I was told, I was talking with a guy years ago that said everybody is actually on a list. Lisa Haven, if you follow her YouTube channel, she's done videos. She's shown the documents and the evidence behind that, by the way. So Mary Saunders says it's saying that America will be cleansed and it will be cut off and no one will be able to enter that is part of it. Okay, sounds like the New World Order or the One World Government, by the way. And that's some of what Bo Pony's presentation he gave through this slideshow. There's a PDF file. It might be still on his website. I was able to download that. Talks about the 7 seals and this information. Mary Saunders said it also talks about God and his son. Okay, thank you for that information, Mary. That's dealing with that appears to be the One World Government. And I learned about that information originally from my mother many years ago, from growing up in a Christian church. Like who wrote this book, and I had to order a second version. This is actually a second copy. The original copy I had of this book, William Shinoblin autographed it for me at this Bible Prophecy Club event that I attended in Michigan, by the way. And this book opened my eyes to a lot of things. He was a former member and talked about the connection to Satanism and how one of his mentors was one of the elite men in the world, was one of the members of the ruling elite, by the way. And I remember my mother telling me about this meeting. I was interested because that's how I was drawn into the New World Order stuff. But I believe I've gone a step further in investigating and researching this type of information than she has, by the way. I think she's still drinking the Kool-Aid because she sent me the message when she texted me about that arrest that was made with these so-called militiamen in Michigan, that she was watching some stuff on CNN. And I'm like, don't tell me you're buying the Kool-Aid from CNN. the News Network. Some call it MSNBC. I can still watch those shows, but just understand that they're pushing a narrative that's not going to go as in depth with the information that I'm covering. By the way, someone even showed an old clip how many years ago, a clip that they removed, you can't find it anymore, where Don Lemon talked about things that African Americans needed to do, but he won't talk like that anymore because they've shifted. The narrative has changed to show how they're hypocrites. So he talked about, Black Americans needed positive messages and things of this sort, but they removed this clip years ago. By the way, I don't remember all of the information. Sandra Week says the Book of Revelations, Daniel, Ezekiel. Okay, yes, I'm familiar with, definitely. Mary Saunders says, even though the New World Order wants it to be one way, that is not what the Bible says will happen. Okay, yes. But it is very concerning, and I feel, from what I can clearly see from my observation, it appears to be the members of the ruling class elite, the criminal global syndicate known as the globalists, the also known as the Illuminati, are using the Democratic Party to push the Green New Deal, which is part of Agenda 21, sustainable development. By the way, they're pushing these agendas and they're using the Democratic Party. And as I kind of addressed earlier, they're using the agenda with the police and these activists as a scapegoat. They're using it as a cover for their ulterior motive to bring in a socialism and communism overthrow. And they use this in other countries, by the way. Soros was even banned and kicked out of other countries too, by the way. He used some of these practices when Ukraine was, the Ukrainians wanted to break off away from the Russians years ago with that Crimea situation. They study the demographics of the people that live in the area, by the way, like the Orthodox people or whatever. I heard that Soros, they have these actuaries, they study these different groups so they can pin them against each other. So keep in mind that the Hegelian dialectic, they create the problem and come up with the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. In order to have peace, they create the chaos. They cause chaos, by the way. Hegelian dialectic. So they do this in other parts of the world. I even had a guy that is a foreigner who worked on my car, I won't say, at a particular auto shop that I've gone to for a number of years to have my car worked on. And he showed me the video that I'm now seeing take place these years later with the violent riots that took place after the George Floyd murder, the killing. He showed me in another country, because he's from another country, but he served in our, he shared with me privately. I won't say his name to protect his identity, but he's a mechanic, and we talked privately, and he showed me these videos, and I said, wow, it was like these people in this other country were throwing like these Molotov cocktails at the police, and they had them backed into a corner. I was like, whoa, I had never seen that before. And he showed me this some years ago. So I'm actually seeing this take place now this year. So this foreigner, I witnessed from experience, this guy, I don't know, he's a cool guy. He's from another, I don't know which country. He might look past for Caucasian, but he lives in an area outside the greater Metro Detroit area. He's a real cool guy. I asked him about the COVID situation, what his opinion was. He gave me, by the way, said for population control, I think there's different angles, perspectives people have, but he showed me video footage of what I see was going on this year. So it's like prophetic in a sense, by the way. It's amazing. I have sources in different regards as I present this information to you all. Sandra Weeks says, wickedness in high places. Mary Saunders says, yes, Sandra. Yes, I agree. You guys are right on point. I studied Bible prophecy because many years ago, my mother used to get those comic books they had from the Bible bookstore that had the 4 horsemen that talked about the apocalypse, the New World Order, the Antichrist, and things of that. So my friend who studied eschatology and studied into the occult explained to me deeper about the Illuminati, by the way, how the Bible, the book of Revelations, is also the book of Apocalypse. This is also like their playbook, by the way, they use to go along with their agenda. So they have a lot of this stuff pre-planned. And remember, Pastor Lindsey Williams said one of his elite friends, the one that survived in touch with him after his other elite friend died. Ken Fromm, by the way, the other guy he was in touch with, sent him an email. He said after Trump won, he sent 2 words in the email and said that God intervened. By the way, that you can look up Pastor Lindsey Williams. He covered that again. He has a newer video out that's supposed to talk about what they're planning before November 3rd. So I don't know if he's still in touch with that elite friend. It appears as though he doesn't give as much information as his other elite friend, Ken Fromm, did before he passed away. By the way, Sandra Week says, y'all telling the truth tonight. Mary Saunders says, I'm also reading Behold a Pill of the White Horse by William Cooper. Okay, yes, I've never read it, but I've heard that's a good book, by the way. And they targeted him many years ago. He was a former veteran, and I think he worked with Navy intelligence, by the way. That's where he got some of his experience from. Because I have friends who are former military, and what a lot of people don't understand, they get secret security clearances, so they're told things that are not privy to the rest of the population or the general public. By the way, I was watching Marfugal news channel, and one of his listeners was called in and mentioned how he knows someone who's a pastor who has a friend who's a contact within the military, told him some things that the military or Homeland Security is preparing, that they expect there to be some riots or things leading up to this election, and I guess thereafter, and they're getting prepared for that. They're already aware that you can clearly see that this is building up the way the mainstream media is hyping up the division too, by the way, because that's another thing. If you fall into that, the left-right paradigm, you fall victim, but it's the ruling class elite are using the Democratic Party more so, which is more egregious with the crimes they've committed versus the Republican Party. By the way, they're using them as a tool, but the media is hyping up the division, by the way. So you have to watch that as well, where they're trying to incite violence and a race war and tensions behind different sides that disagree with one another. The mainstream media, liberal control, progressive media is hyping that up. So it's clear, by the way. So going over the rest of my notes, I'm gonna have to get ready to shut things down, guys. I'm actually got to get ready to head into, I call it the slavery plantation. So I'm gonna try to run through some other notes that I have so far. In case you're joining me, I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. You can subscribe to me if you haven't. Hit the notification bell in the lower right-hand corner. You can follow me on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to thumbs up if you haven't. You can also follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _ 2019. That's my more liberal, laid back side. My Twitter handle is at Dorsey's Resource. Should be in the description box of this video. Check the description box when this video after it uploads. And those are the places to take you where, if you want to follow me on those platforms. Twitter handle is like my more conservative side, by the way, versus my Instagram account, which is more laid back. Both of them are laid back, but that's the difference. Is just letting you guys know, if you want to follow me on there, you're welcome to. I appreciate you all joining, all my current subscribers. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Big shout out once again to Currency 365, who joined earlier for the super chat. Go subscribe to his channel if you haven't. He puts out good information to update us about the GCR, what's going on. Appreciate the work that he's doing over there, as well as others, by the way. Mary Saunders says, be safe. Appreciate you, Mary. Rachel Gang says, hello, Dorsey. I wish that I knew you because I would sit and talk with you for hours. Wow, you are very intelligent. Thank you. Appreciate you, Rachel. Mary Saunders says, good night. I appreciate you all for joining. So I'm just going to go over a little bit more information, but I am getting ready to shut things down, by the way. So this is last call if you guys to jump in. If we have time, I will try to jump in if I have time to acknowledge you. If not, you guys will have a chance to join me again whenever I do Q&A sessions and I go live again. I'm just going over information. While I left the left, I'm never coming back to the Democratic Party. While I walked away, that's the topic of this video that I'm discussing, by the way. Went over a lot of information, by the way. I want to say what I heard about Charles Barkley want to mention, because I heard he spoke on a Breonna Taylor situation. I agree with Barkley. What I've liked is that he keeps it real. He's spoken the truth throughout the years. And some people, not all, get triggered by what he said because they're emotional, caught up in their feelings. But the facts of the case is the police didn't use the no-knock warrant they had access to when they served their warrant. Kenneth Walker, Bree's live-in partner, shot at the police, which caused her to get killed. I heard originally, and he also blamed, I forgot about this because I did hear this when this didn't have a lot of attention at first before Hollywood actors and stuff jumped on this. This was actually reported on that he actually blamed Breonna Taylor for shooting at the police, and then he changed his story in a while. So, and that was just come out recently, but I heard about that originally earlier on. That was reported on, believe it or not. Her name was also listed on the warrant. It is sad that this happened, but the police will justify the jury's evidence, information. They try to be fair and unbiased as possible. It's just many of these cases have become politicized, but she helped facilitate a trap house for Jamarcus Glover, this other guy, Kenneth Walker. There was also a guy that was murdered in a car that was rented in her name, by the way, which is oftentimes not brought up. Black people have to stop glorifying this criminal street life thug culture, by the way, which is one of the reasons in order to see Black liberation, Black people are going to have to stop uplifting people who are involved in these type of activities and things and listen to people that bring real solutions to try to help and to solve the problems that are really going on. Whereas I mentioned earlier, Democrats don't really truly want to solve the problems. They just keep drumming the issues up with racism. Remember, they've been holding many candidates have been in office for why now have they not done anything to change these situations that have happened? They could have what the 8 years that Obama had. What did he do specifically for Black people? He went out of his way to help the LGBTQIA community. When some Black people say, oh, Obama couldn't help the Black community or whatever. Remember, he said he was the president for everyone, like to try to excuse him from specifically helping the Black community. Why don't enough Black people question number 44 on why didn't you do more? But he also increased reparations for the Jewish community for something that happened in another country, by the way, the Hasidic Jews, the Caucasian Jews, by the way, for something that happened overseas years ago, but you still never passed reparations for your own people who gave you over 90% of the Black vote to help you get in office your first go around. And it was mostly predominantly straight heterosexual Black men who fought in these wars, fought in the civil rights movement, who are not benefiting from the Democratic Party's policies and egregious activities for promoting feminism, by the way, that promote child support, the court judicial system, which is biased towards Black men. That's why I will never be a Democrat, never support them, by the way, because their party, their policies have especially not assisted the people, the Black men, heterosexual, straight Black men years ago were on the front lines, getting their asses whooped, getting sick by dogs, being lynched, etc., that led to these benefits that's going to benefit all these other groups. And these Democratic candidates will come in and champion other causes for these other groups out there. So this is why I do still support reparations and think reparations still should happen for African Americans. Understand that, don't get it twisted. But Black men were on the front lines years ago. All these rights that everybody's getting that's been given, but Black men are like treated as second-class citizens, by the way. And this is facts. You look at the history. World War I, many Black men fought the Civil War, World War II. You look at Martin Luther King had dogs sicked on him, water hoses sprayed on him. It was mostly African-American men who were on the front lines. And a fact, by the way, my friend lived with a preacher and his wife, just like I had many years ago, and told me the preacher's wife informed him privately that it was Black women who had recruited Martin Luther King privately behind the scenes and asked him to be the civil rights movement, similar to Rosa Parks, by the way. This family, a friend told me he lived with the Burdens. I lived many years ago with Pastor Parnell. My friend lived with the Burden family, Pastor Bishop Burden. I think he had, or either his wife, one of them had a background in the Church of God in Christ. I grew up Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal denomination. So my great-grandfather helped construct Mason Temple, by the way, in Memphis, Tennessee. He was appointed as the building commissioner by Bishop Church of God in Christ coaching. So I have history roots in that. So I'm very well studied. I do know my history. I don't forget my roots, but I have to keep it real and be honest. The Democratic Party has betrayed African American men, especially more specifically. So I have a right to voice my grievances on behalf of my ancestors who have died and fought for on behalf. What they see today, I think some of them will be turning in their graves, including Malcolm X, who even spoke about white liberals years ago, and even went as far as to call and say the Democratic Party was more racist than the Republican Party, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. So I'm just saying, and going over this information, if you get, guys, in case you heard in the background, somebody hit buzz my alarm. I'm getting ready to shut things down anyway, by the way, in this video. So I appreciate all of us for joining and going over this information. Mary Sonda says, good night. Appreciate you, Mary. Good night to you as well. Says Larry Davis says, Dorsey, get that shovel out. Pine Bluff, Arkansas, checking in with you. No black agenda or reparations. Why would I want to vote? Right. Yeah, they said there's some people that feel like they're holding the black vote hostage. I do follow Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club, even though they're more liberal lean. I saw the video that Sean Diddy Combs did. The video Ice Cube was on Dr. Boyce Watkins' program recently. And I agree. And I know how some people feel about both parties, but I'm just voicing my opinion. If I was a registered voter, I would lean more to the right versus the left, by the way. Just my take on it, because I feel like they haven't, some are going to hold the vote hostage because they've abandoned, and specifically abandoned African American throughout the years, by the way, who were on the front lines, the straight men. I'm not talking about LGBTQ men. I'm talking about straight heterosexual men who fought for these rights all throughout history, that had bloodshed, that were lynched, dogs sicked on them, food sit-ins, food thrown on them, cursed at, called names, etc. You can imagine. But when it comes to divvying up the spoils, today Black women mostly benefit. Not saying that they don't go through problems just like we do, but our situation, our struggles are far worse than theirs. By the way, just when I mentioned a lot of these protests or killings, they put Black men on a pedestal, prop them up, but then they'll do a bait and switch and champion causes from these other groups that I named. So that's why, I'm just giving my opinion, voicing it on the side note, too, by the way. So it is for what it is. Let me see, going over. Okay, well, guys, that's my time. Pretty much, I still had some more information. I covered quite a bit. So if you guys want to follow me, I am your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource. I appreciate you guys who did take the time to join me. Those of you all who continue to subscribe, don't forget to share this video. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't. If you do want to follow me, you can follow me at Facebook, on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _2019. I'm also on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. And once again, that's my more conservative side. Instagram is my more laid back side. If you see there's like a difference, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, by the way, but it is for what it is. And the topic of this video was dealing with why I left the Democratic Party, walk away, why I'm not never coming back to the Democratic Party. I'm not a registered voter, by the way. I've been since 2004, by the way. And I showed my voter registration cards that are canceled, by the way. And, it is for what it is. So I'm getting ready to shut things down. Once again, appreciate you guys. I'm going to read this last message. Larry Davis says, Mary Saunders says, I was Kojic is also, okay. Kudos to you, Mary. Thank you for joining too, by the way. That's good to hear. Larry Davis says, I'm not stuck on being stupid anymore. Lots of people are stuck on being stupid. Appreciate you, Larry. Appreciate you. So I'm getting ready to be out, guys. I got to head into the slavery plantation, as I call it. Once again, I appreciate you all. The marathon will continue. To those out there, stay woke, and real legends never die. Adios, amigos. Sayonara. Masalama. Inshallah. Ashe. Until then, Dorsey signing out. Deuces. Wakanda forever. Peace.